The first sound was a bark, sharp and mocking. "Are you deaf? Old man, move it." The words cut through the barracks like a bayonet. Jonas Mercer didn't react. At 67, he'd survived too many gunfights to flinch at a pup's growl. His mop moved in steady arcs, the scent of bleach and pine rising like ghosts from a forgotten battlefield. The voice belonged to Ryan Tank Thorne, a SEAL candidate built like armor plate, swagger heavy in his step. Two classmates loitered nearby, grins sharp as knives. "Eager for a show?" "I've got inspection in 10. Thorne barked. "This isn't a ballroom." "Grandpa, pack it up." Jonas straightened slowly, joints creaking, pale eyes locking on Thorne's. Calm, measured, dangerous in ways the young man couldn't yet read. "Almost done." "Son," Jonas rasped. "I'm not your son." Thorne sneered, and laughter rippled from the watching recruits. He circled closer. "You don't belong here. For all we know, you're a spy." Jonas leaned on his mop, knuckles scarred from fights buried decades deep. "I have clearance." They checked. "Show me." "Before this clash goes any further, tell us where are you watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you love stories of hidden warriors and legends the world almost forgot, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Jonas pulled a cracked wallet from his red coveralls, hand trembling from age. Not fear. Thorne snatched the card. Jonas Mercer. Photo looks older than half this base. Then his eyes caught the tarnished brass shard pinned to Jonas's collar. He flicked it with a smirk. "What's this, a janitor's badge?" The instant his finger touched the metal, Jonas's world lurched. The corridor dissolved, replaced by jungle heat. Rotor blades, the weight of a dying man across his shoulders. A whisper, fading but eternal. "Don't let them forget us." When Jonas's eyes cleared, the mop was still in his grip, but behind them burned a battlefield no trainee could imagine. And at the far end of the hall, Master Chief Elias MACV-SOG realized this was no ordinary janitor. MACV-SOG studied the scene with the patience of a man who'd read danger like weather. Arms folded in the doorway, face carved from deployments and sleepless watches. He'd seen Thorne's kind before. Arrogance wasn't the problem. Ignorance was. Thorne toyed with the ID, raising his voice for the room. Could be fake. Old guy wandering around a secure area. Sounds like a security risk. The crowd leaned in, hungry for a spectacle. Jonas's breathing never changed, but the set of his jaw, a stillness forged in places worse than hell, caught Mac's eye. He didn't intervene. Feeding Thorne would only embolden him. Instead, he slid out his phone, scrolling to a number he hadn't dialed in 5 years. A number reserved for when something shattered the pattern of ordinary life. The line clicked. Mac's words were low, clipped. "Sir, Voss at Ravencliff. You're not going to believe this. Janitor named Jonas Mercer. He's got a pin." Thorne's pressing him. The silence on the other end stretched long, heavy. Then came the controlled reply. "Understood. Get me the base commander. Move nothing. I'm on my way." Back in the barracks. The air shifted. The laughter thinned. Recruits sensed it, something larger than their games had been set in motion. Jonas stood quiet, the brass pin warm against his collar, the memory of a hillside pressing against his chest. Engines rumbled outside, distant at first, then swelling. Tires screeched. Black SUVs cut through the morning haze, skidding to a halt. Thorne's smirk cracked. The trainees went silent, and as the barracks door burst open, every man in the corridor felt it. A reckoning had arrived. Rear Admiral Franklin Pace's office was a temple of order, mahogany panels polished like mirrors, medals aligned with mathematical precision, every binder squared to the inch. When the phone slammed into its cradle, that order cracked. The vibration rattled across the desk, making his aide flinch. Pace stood, jaw tight, eyes storm-dark. For 30 years, he'd been known for unshakable calm, a man who could move pieces on the global chessboard without ever raising his voice. That calm was gone. "Get my car," he barked, snatching his cover. "Patch me to the base commander." "Barracks Bravo." 5 minutes ago, the aide blurted, pale as parchment. "Sir, what's a code L? It's not in the manual." Pace's stare could have cut steel. L stands for Legend. It means a living Medal of Honor or Distinguished Service. Cross Holder is on this base. Unescorted. And right now, his voice dropped. Lethal quiet. It means one of our own is spitting in God's face. Move. The command center exploded into motion phones lighting, officers scrambling, routine collapsing into crisis. None of them knew the procedure for a code L, but Pace's tone told them everything history itself had just walked onto their base. Back in the barracks. Thorne pushed too far. His hand clamped around Jonas Mercer's arm. What should have been frail flesh felt like cable under stone. He yanked. Nothing. Jonas didn't move. His boots might as well have been welded to the floor. The old man finally looked at him, pale eyes flickering with something colder than anger. Disappointment, the kind forged in men who'd already seen the worst the world could offer and found it predictable. That look made Thorne's stomach twist. He pulled harder, bravado cracking at the edges. The crowd shuffled, unease leaking into the silence. What began as hazing now felt like sacrilege. Then came the sound. Engines. Low at first, then rising into a storm of tires, brakes, and slamming doors. Heads snapped to the windows. Black SUVs screamed onto the parade ground, flanked by Marine patrols moving too fast, too precise. Armed detail spilled out, rifles shouldered, perimeter locking down. The base commander stumbled from the lead car, face drained, but all eyes swung to the second SUV. Its rear door opened. Out stepped Rear Admiral Franklin Pace, the man who commanded every Navy SEAL alive. His arrival struck like a hammer blow. The air itself seemed to stand at attention. Jonas hadn't moved. Thorne's hand still gripped his arm, and in the frozen silence of that barracks, every man present understood the rules were about to be rewritten. The crash of the barracks door was like a thunderclap. Conversations died. Breathing stopped. Rear Admiral Franklin Pace stepped inside, his presence heavier than the storm that seemed to follow him in. The base commander stumbled behind him, pale as chalk, and Master Chief Voss sealed the doorway like a shadow. Every trainee in the room froze. Thorne's hand, still clamped on Jonas Mercer's arm, snapped back as if burned. The young candidate shot ramrod straight, heels locked, face draining of color. The room was a tableau of rigid attention, yet it felt like a crime scene, every man aware something irreversible had just happened. Pace's gaze swept the room with surgical precision, slicing across terrified faces until it landed not on Thorne, but on Jonas. He moved past the candidate without a word, each step deliberate, inexorable. When he stopped in front of the old janitor in the red coveralls, the silence was suffocating. Then the unthinkable happened. Rear Admiral Franklin Pace, the commander of all Navy SEALs, a man feared and revered in equal measure, snapped his heels together. His salute cut the air like a blade. "Mr. Mercer," his voice boomed, steady with respect that bordered on reverence. "It is an honor." "Sir." The world tilted. The trainee's jaws slackened. Thorne's knees wavered. A 2-star admiral saluting a janitor, it shattered the very laws of their universe. Jonas didn't flinch. Slowly, with the weariness of a man long past ceremony, he raised a hand halfway. Not a salute, Not exactly. An acknowledgement. A nod from someone who had carried burdens too heavy for metals to balance. When Pace dropped his hand, the atmosphere cracked. He turned on Thorne, his eyes ice and fire. "Do you have any idea who this is?" His voice was a whisper, sharpened into a knife. Thorne stammered, barely audible. "No. Sir." "No," Pace said. Fury contained in a commander's discipline. "You see an old man, a janitor, a nuisance. You think you're learning to be the tip of the spear. You don't even know who forged it." He gestured toward Jonas. "This is Jonas Mercer. In 1966, he was a staff sergeant in a classified unit you won't find in manuals MACV-SOG. They walked behind enemy lines when your fathers were still in grade school. They lived in shadows. Most of them died there." A ripple of recognition moved through the room. Legends. Ghosts. The stuff whispered about but never confirmed. Pace's voice rose, hammering each word. He was part of a 6-man recon team dropped on a hilltop in Laos. They were compromised, surrounded by a regiment, 1,000 against 6. For 2 nights they held that hill. Mercer alone repelled human wave assaults with a rifle. Grenades, his bare hands when the ammo was gone. He called in airstrikes so close the fire singed his skin. When reinforcements arrived, only he and 1 other man were still breathing, surrounded by the dead. He pointed a finger at Thorne's chest. "The tactics you think you're mastering here, men like Mercer wrote them. In blood, in rain, in the mud of a world you can't imagine." His eyes flicked to the small brass pin on Jonas's collar, his tone softening with awe. "That pin is no badge of maintenance. It's a fragment of the first grenade he threw in combat. He carried it so he'd never forget the men who didn't make it off that hill." The silence was unbearable now, shame, awe, disbelief hanging heavy over every man in the barracks. Jonas Mercer stood unmoving, not like a hero, but like a man too tired to shed the weight he'd carried for 50 years.